when you have an engaged public, that's when real change can come about. When you have people who are not just knowledgeable, but aware of what's going on and willing to work together across party lines, across all the different things that usually divide people, beautiful things happen in the world. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Am I coming through good?
Yep. Yep.
All
I
right.
just want to make sure it's not come. I tried to get it through my Bluetooth, but it's not working. So
This microphone isn't working. I love this microphone. I've had 4 microphones now, 3 of them, and this is my favorite one I've had yet. It's the first time I've had trouble with it, but I'm
oh
sure it's
yeah.
user error.
What kind is it?
It's a blue. I'm not sure the exact make of it.
Oh yeah.
It's so nice actually. It picks me up from anywhere I am. I can change the settings on it to make it like a group conversation. So next week, for example, I'm going
Right.
to South by Southwest, and I have some buddies I want to get on the podcast. I call that the Golden Broberg series. It's like the people I love. Like, hey, you've been wanting to come on the podcast for a while, and I keep saying no. Now I can kind of make it work. We just gotta talk about Twitter. So I bought this microphone for that reason, and switch it, and all of a sudden it takes the whole room up, and it's good at getting the background noise
Oh, that's
out.
awesome.
Yeah, really impressive. Really impressive machine here.
Yeah. Yeah. I use a Audio Technica 2020 for most of my like studio stuff. But yeah, I'm not on that computer right now. It's kind of tucked in the corner. So
Yeah, I gotcha. I see the guitars in the background. So what do you produce music? Do you put instruments? Do you play? One of my best friends on earth. He's a producer, plays the guitar, piano, all that good
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, no, I've been playing music for years, like since I was a teenager. I haven't really done much with it in the last probably 15 years or more, but I've been trying to pick it up again, and it's slow but steady.
Yeah, no, I'm amazed at the progress I see. I have no musical ability other than freestyle rapping. If you're having a cipher, I enjoy that a lot. But I learned that because my my buddies in college that I met, one of them being the guy I just previously mentioned, they played music and they sang and they rapped and they produced and they did all these things, and I'm just mind blown knowing them now for 7, 8 years, the progress I've seen year to year to year,
Yeah,
and they've
yeah,
obviously been doing
pretty
this
cool.
years before then. It's wild. It's a very cool skill. It's a very cool thing in life to go do because it's always something you can get better at. It's a lifetime endeavor and
Oh, for
something.
sure.
Yeah, it's very cool. Love seeing that stuff. But anyway,
No, it's something kind of fun and awesome to do, and it's I wish I had more time for it. Is really what it comes down to. It's been super busy with work and home life and everything else, so it's kind of taken a back seat for the last little bit. But
what is
especially
work?
everything we're doing with
Oh yeah, no, everything that's
the,
happening on in the market on AMC
yeah.
and all that. But what is work?
I work as a telecom and a telecom engineering as a planner. So I design large scale infrastructure for like fiber optic and coaxial networks and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. I love it. It's been kind of a passion of mine. It's been in the industry now 19 years. So yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy it. That's what I'm doing during when I'm running space calls. Is I have my work all kind of surrounding me, and it's like I'm talking with my coworkers while I'm on the calls and stuff. It's kind of fun.
That's a great way to have a space call. They always kind of like, I feel like they take a lot out of me. I'm kind of on it as
Yeah,
if I'm doing a podcast, and it's just it's different for me. It takes way more energy from me, but that's a great way to do it. I would just have
yeah,
it on as background basically as radio, like ape radio.
yeah, exactly. And I find that way I'm still able to interact with everybody and also get my work done throughout the day and be able to do what I love, right? And
Yeah.
build people up and help people get through their day as well. Because I know a lot of people are just sitting around listening during their work day as well.
Yeah, no, very true. It's one of the parts of Twitter I've really just found this app to be so amazing. I was on it as a child, like in high school, tweeting jokes with like my friends basically, and then
Yeah,
never touched it again for a long time. And when I came back to it because of AMC, actually, I literally got on AMC. Like, I got a Twitter to follow AMC News and stalk people that could teach me how to day trade and read charts, all that stuff. And then
right.
and then here we are. What would it be, 2 to 3 years later, and we're having
Kind of
this
crazy, isn't it?
discussion, right? And it's wild how Twitter is able to filter that, just the tool that it is, I think it's just so cool. Like the fact that I found this community and this podcast exists. This started out as a vending machine podcast, and then
Yeah,
uh
yeah, I noticed that. I was like, oh, there's a lot of episodes about vending machines. Like, what's going on here? And then I was like, I don't think I really relate to this. And then I see the later episodes and was like, oh, wait, I know all these guys. These are all my friends. Yeah, let's do
yeah,
it. So
yeah. I appreciate you all coming on. Like it's pretty when I'm daydreaming about the future and I
yeah,
want to be a big podcast guy, right? And
yeah,
I think back like, wow, this all got started because a meme account, Sal the Meme Lord, was willing to talk to me. And it kind of gave me
yeah,
the confidence, like, okay, I got one person to say they'll talk to me. Took a few weeks to set up. And then it just kind of gave me the confidence, like, hey, let's go interact with this awesome community. And the vision just started forming more and more. And now I think it's gonna be called the good of Twitter for a long time because of the community that we are both a part of. And I know there's so many more out there. I got to talk to some Doge people, and
yeah,
they're really cool. They have so many like niches, and it's very similar to the AMC ape community. Actually, I kind of consider it the ape logo, ape term to encapsulate all of retail in my
yeah,
mind. That's
yeah.
kind of how I
I
look at it.
think
How do
so.
you look
It's
at
like
that?
it doesn't just extend to the AMC community. It's also like you have the investors in the meta materials, you got people in the BBIG, you got people into GME, you got people into all these different tickers, and they're just as passionate. It's just
Yeah,
they're a smaller group. And a couple months ago, we started reaching out to a bunch of different people from various different communities and just pooling that DD resource together. And we've learned a lot from each other. And I think that helps some of the communities that are up and coming. They're becoming more passionate, more vocal on social media. They're now able to kind of learn from our pitfalls so that they don't make the same mistakes, because that's something that I've noticed throughout the different communities on Twitter is they're going through the same stuff we went through, and sometimes it's not at the same time. It's like we went through it a year ago and they're going through it now, and if we can share, swap stories, we can learn from them, they can learn from us. And I think it's really important for that, right? I try and keep what I do very kind of like non-ticker specific. Everybody knows I'm an AMC guy. They all know that that's where home is for me. But by kind of branching out and accepting people from all the different communities, you get a much more balanced perspective. Like you just get all these different insights, and what's happening on their stock can relate to what's happening on ours, and vice versa. So just kind of one of those things, treat people as people and keep trying to build bridges. That's it's kind of been my passion project through all this. And I was very similar to you. Like I've had my Twitter account since 2012. And if you look back on the almost 20,000 tweets I've put out in that time, the majority of them have been in this era,
span this era.
right?
Yeah,
In the last 2 years. I didn't really use my Twitter account. Every time I'd get logged in on a new phone, or like, you get your phone, you get it all set up, but I didn't use it. I was on Reddit. I was using Facebook, like a lot of people do, but Reddit was where I was kind of on the Wall Street Bets community, AMC stock subreddit, Super Stonk, those places. And that's what kind of got me engaged in the investment community. And then I wanted to take the discussion to the next level. And I saw a bunch of people who were posting screenshots on Reddit of people that I now know on Twitter. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe I should be lending my voice there. Maybe that's going to be something that will actually work out. And I just started doing it, and it just kind of happened organically. You end up being followed by a few people. Troy and Jen, they were two people that were kind of my first people in the community that accepted me and became friendly. We exchanged DMs. They're an absolutely amazing couple. They're awesome people. And they were just like, yeah, you got to be cautious on this site. There's lots of good information, but there's also a bunch of misinformation, and kind of just showed me the ropes of things. And then I got into space calls, and that is kind of where it took off, right? Kind of floated around at first, going into a few different ones, just checking them out, and met some really amazing people. For me, it was with Batman is where I found home. Stonks Batman was hosting the Positive Vibes AMC space for months and months and months and months. I started coming up to talk and just kind of found my voice, and people started to want to talk with me off of the calls as well, and they liked what I had to say. I've always kind of been that like find the good in people and see things from an empathetic point of view, and kind of relating that back to the stock, as I felt like I could bring that worldview to the community and help people calm down. And I saw people that were getting so pulled in one way or the other, and it kind of saddened me a little bit, because I was like, we don't need to be afraid. We don't have to be pulled by all these different forces. We know what we know. Let's just stay focused on that. Let's stay focused on where we are and what we are as a community. And the more I started doing it, the better it got, and it just kind of built. I started doing my own calls. Rocket and Batman were both really supportive of that. They were like, go out, spread your wings, man. Like, you don't have to wait for us to host a call. You can do it yourself, and this is how. And I started off at the AMC Beacon. That's what we used to call it. And the call just kind of grew. It was a place for people to be positive, be bullish, express that bullish sentiment, and didn't always talk DD, didn't always talk about stock market mechanics, but we talked about how we were feeling. And that kind of evolved into something more. I had to take a break over the summer. I had a surgery that I needed to recover from, and my kids were in town. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to not be on calls for a while. And when I came back, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to kind of provide a space for people to be themselves, to be able to unload their burden and kind of take the pressure off of them, and still be able to ask a question and not just be immediately shot down. I wanted them to be people to be able to feel like they could come in, and no matter how big their account was, no matter how long they'd been in the movement, that they could come in and be treated like a person. They could be treated with empathy first, instead of like waiting till you get to know somebody, because there's a lot of emotion in this play, a lot of emotion in the community, and being able to provide people with a means of expressing those emotions in a safe place, it was like, this just makes sense. We don't have to talk about all the other stuff that's going on, because day to day, not much changes. We know that there's the short interest is where it is. We know the cost to borrow. Batman will tell us daily what that is. We know
That's
what
my
the
biggest piece.
thesis is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So being able to take it to a different level and be kind of portray that more human side. And there were lots of small accounts that I would talk to, and they'd be like, I don't feel like I can come up in a big space where there's 500 or 600 people and talk openly, because there's like this tension that they were feeling almost embarrassed if they had a question, or if they didn't have as much knowledge as everybody else. And I just wanted to give people a place where they could come and just decompress, not have to
Mhm.
worry about everything that was going on in the community. And regardless of who they were, they would be accepted, and they could hear a positive voice.
Yeah, no, that
And
makes
I
sense.
thought
Yeah,
it was
you're
important.
you keep going. It's making me, you made me a little emotional for a second in the middle of that. It was like, what's so amazing. It's kind of like around the AMC Beacon time, where it's like everyone's just being positive. And like, what I started thinking about was my bullish sentiment. A lot of it comes from not just the technicals. I just had a conversation with Peter Hahn, who's awesome. That one's going up here
Mm-hmm.
soon, and
Yeah, he's a great guy.
great conversation. Learned a lot about him, and there's technicals there. There's I think this will make money, yes, but what really makes me like so excited to be here, and like what feels so good about this, and not beyond my own money, is I've talked to people like you. I've talked to people like Peter, Sal, Kelly, she's works at AMC, and it's people from all across the board. And it's just like, it's amazing. It's truly amazing what this is. And the fact that it's also a revolution, and we're winning. And it's people like different ages and different backgrounds. And
Yeah.
the fact that we're all coming together. I mean, I would like to say people like me, maybe one day, but definitely people like you, who like you've helped form these communities is you just went the extra mile. You took the extra step, and now there's hundreds of people that, hey, this is something that I can enjoy, I can connect with, and I can share my emotion if I ever feel the need to jump in. And you created a space. I mean, no pun intended. You created a space, and it's
Yeah.
super cool to see that's happening just all over this community. Like the overall retail, yes, and like the fact that this is like it blows my mind, and it makes me very happy. And that's like a big part of the reason I am so bullish, is that there's so many different smart people here, and there's so many just different stories and backgrounds. The fact that we're not gonna we argue, we bicker, there's that, but the
Yeah.
fact that it's mostly like I see so much good, and the people I interact with and interact with me, whether they're fellow, I call us like as content creators in a sense. I don't really know what it would be considered. People that are trying to do things like you and I, or just regular, they don't have a picture up, it's just the letter and the logo and a blue background and no followers. Sometimes they'll reach out to me, like, hey, I love what you're doing. This is awesome. And
Yeah.
all I really receive
Well,
is love. And I feel like when you put that, I try and put that out. I feel like this community, for the most part, the bad stuff gets the headlines, but like for the most part, that's what this community is. And across all different spectrums of retail, it's just so cool to see.
yeah. No, and I think the coolest thing for me has been able to see how it's evolved over time. We went from being very much like a homogeny of thought to very diversified ways of thinking, and being able to celebrate what brings us together, but also how diverse the background is.
Yeah.
There's been people that come up in the space that are in their 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s. We've had teenagers. Like it's crazy how like diverse this group is, and everybody is coming in under the banner of wanting to make things better, to fair and respectable markets, and get rid of the status quo, and saying that, oh well, it's fair enough. Well, no, it's
And
not.
that's the
And that
story
that's
that, yeah, sorry to cut you off, but that's the story that everyone's missing. Everyone outside of this, right there, exactly what you said, that's the story that's not getting told. And that's what's so
Mhm.
upsetting, because I know for a fact when the Seth Rogen movie comes out, and that's gonna be the main one people watch because Seth Rogen and all that, it's
Mhm.
just not gonna tell the proper story. It's gonna tell like a version of the story, and I'm sure it's gonna be
Yeah.
truthful from its perspective, but it's not telling the proper story of, hey, this is incredible. You can't get young people and old people together. You can't get different races together. You can't get different religions together. It is so hard to get people together. Right here, right now, everyone's together. Capitalists and socialists and
Yeah.
Democrats,
Left,
Republicans,
right,
old,
it
young,
doesn't
whatever,
matter.
it doesn't
And
matter. We're all here, and it's incredible. Like this doesn't happen, and the fact that there is a actual revolution happening right now, but it's just not in the way the world's ever seen it before. It's all
yeah.
online. You don't have to actually gather in masses. I actually don't think that works in this case at all.
What
But
and here's the thing. It's like when you have people that can see each other for who they are, human beings, and they can understand that, yeah, you may disagree on some things, but there are things that will unite you. Your experience is similar. It may not be the same, but it is similar. And when you realize that, you can have empathy for each other. And that's been one of the things that I've kind of really clung to in the last a couple months, is like trying to help people see that they are united, that we can have a voice, that you don't have to fall for the same divisive tactics that have come out over race, religion, political stripes. All of these different things don't mean anything. We're all the same in a lot of ways. We have different stories, diverse backgrounds, diverse stories that have for so long pushed people apart, but it's bringing people together. And we're pushing for change. There's so much political activism that ends up happening within the stock market itself as a result of people being able to come together and talk. And I think that's what's important about running spaces, having as a lot of them. Some people will say, "Oh, well, we should all be in one space," but I think that kind of dilutes the messaging, because when you have a space, you've got 12 speakers, you've got 12 spots, and in those 12 spots, you can't have a, a whole ton of people talking. You can have a great conversation going, but when you have multiple spaces for multiple different people and they appeal to different people, then the message gets out, more voices get heard. You can have more people come up and
Yeah.
feel comfortable discussing things because they're with like-minded individuals. And I think that's a very good thing.
It's almost, yeah,
When I
no, you can
started
keep
doing
going. Yeah.
this space, right? It was like um, the whole mentality behind it was, I don't care how many people come. We're just going to treat it as if we're having a discussion amongst 4 or 5, 12 friends. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who's here. We're going to treat it the same, even if there's 300 people in space. And we've had really, really big spaces. There's been days where there's been 1,200. There's been days where there's been 50. But you keep things level and you treat people the same way no matter what. And you don't get a big head about
Good advice. It's advice I hope I need. As
it.
this grows. Yeah, but part of what you were saying feels like a thought that you sparked. We're almost democratizing speech. It's
Yeah. And information.
an information. Yeah. So that I love when you were saying, oh, there's more voices. It spreads, this message spreads more. That's very
Yeah.
true. I never really thought about it in that aspect before, but that's so true that what we've seen here due to Twitter, social media, but really Twitter in my mind, Reddit to an extent, YouTube to an extent. But what we're seeing here is we've taken this transition of going back a long time, right? Like the kings put out all the information, the kings and the queens put out all the information, and slowly, well, now there's a printing press. So now there's a whole new thing where, hey, I can write this one time and go print it 1,000 times, give it to everyone in the city. There's a new player in the world. And that same model basically stuck all the way through Fox and CNN and all of that. It evolved. That was basically that model for a long, long time. The internet made it better. And then Twitter, which is still so young, and I really hope finds a way to survive. I'm definitely rooting for Elon Musk 100%, because I think this is just such an important
Mm-hmm.
thing. But it's just so young. We're finally now seeing in its almost teenage years, oh, this is what this thing can do for us. It's literally democratizing voices. And social media has just made the ability to spread information down to the individual, to the single individual.
Yeah.
You don't need to climb the corporate ranks and play this political game that human beings are human beings. I love Robert Greene's my favorite author, and he'll humble the hell out of anybody. Human
Mm-hmm.
beings are human beings. When we get involved in that stuff, we get diluted. Like there's even a study done showing that if somebody is reminded they work in government, in banking, there's a few, I can't remember all the industries, but media is one of them too. And it's like if you're reminded of that before a test, you will be more likely to cheat on the test. Just reminding
Mm-hmm.
yourself, oh, I'm in banking. Oh, I'm in government. And that works in that way for almost every country. Denmark's the one exception, but that is not the case. Good for Denmark, but that's just kind of how that goes when you get involved inside those big corporations. And now people like you and me, we don't have to do anything. All we have to do is put in a little bit of effort, and we'll figure it out as we go, and we evolve as we go,
Oh, sure.
and let meritocracy do its thing. I almost want to call it capitalism, but it's not money though. It's meritocracy. It's meritocracy of, hey, if you have something that people value, which I love what you're doing, and there's a reason that went from whatever, it's gonna be 12 people talking, and even if there's 1,200 people all of a sudden, it's still just 12 of us talking, and there's a reason 1,200 people are there now. It's because people find value in what you're doing, and it warms my heart that they do, because there is value there. There is a ton of value here, and now that we can have different people reaching other people, and they can't stop this. This is a movement
Well,
that's just it's
the
wild.
way
Yeah.
that I like to think about it is we are a very minute microcosm of the total retail investing public. Even within the APE community, we've got,
Yeah.
at last report, it was what, 4 million retail investors invested in AMC. And of that, like I have about 6,000 people on any given day following me on Twitter. You've got however many people, and there's
I
some
know.
overlap. It
Yeah.
it really is a small snapshot of the total group when you think about percentage and numbers wise. But if I'm having an impact on even 4 or 5 people and they have that same positive impact, it has that ripple effect out. And if we're all talking positively in the same way, it can have far-reaching impacts. And, even just people being able to feel like they're not alone. Like, I think for me, I started doing calls because I work from home. I've been working from home for years, before the pandemic even. And
Oh,
it is kind of isolating at times. But by doing stuff like this and being able to talk to people throughout the day, you feel more connected. You feel a sense of camaraderie. You feel like you're actually able to connect with people all across the globe on a daily basis. And I've met so many amazing people through the whole process that transcends just the stock market now. It becomes a commentary on what we are doing as a society. We haven't had the ability to connect in this way before. It started off 20 years ago with the internet connecting people through email and chat rooms and everything else. And now we've taken it to a whole nother level. And I don't think that I'm doing anything particularly new or groundbreaking or anything, just providing a space where people can talk and not be shouted at, right? They're able
yeah,
to express their
yeah,
opinion in a respectful way. And it it spreads like wildfire. Just as negativity can spread online, so can positivity. And understanding the balance between the two, it is a juggling act. You have to be able to have both in the environment in order to have a balanced worldview. But if you shut people out or you just focus on one thing, you don't get that same perspective and you can lose sight of who you are. And one thing that I love about this community is like, yes, we're here for the stock market. We're pushing for change. We're pushing to educate people. We're also trying to teach people how to see each other, how to see through a fallacious argument. You talk about misinformation online. This is in like the broader sense of things. There's so much misinformation that's out there. But if you can teach people how to identify fallacious arguments by teaching, and this is why I push logical fallacies and the looking at the different types of biases that are out there.
hmm,
Once people are aware of them, they can discern for themselves and come to a better understanding. And then they're not relying on just one person perceiving information. They can kind of filter it on their own and provide their own perspective, because I take the sum of my experience and that's how I interpret the data. But I could miss something through my own cognitive biases.
hmm,
So if I'm listening to other people who are also absorbing the same information, but they're taking a different stance on it, I can refine my own understanding of it, and it becomes a much better situation. People can have a deeper knowledge, and not only that, a deeper understanding of each other. And when you understand that relationship that happens within a conversation or a discussion, it really takes you to a better place. You end up being able to work cooperatively together with people you may not have thought you could work with before. You can see past the generational divides. You can see past the background divide. All the things that we are told should divide us become something more of a uniting factor.
absolutely.
I'm 39. I've got people that are my good friends that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 20s. It really spans the full gamut, and they all have something good to offer. You don't have that same level of people going, "Oh well, listen here, Sonny. I know best because I'm older. Or, I know best because of this." Or for years we hear that kind of stuff in the media. That's something that is perpetuated through our society. But within this community, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't
No,
matter
it
what
doesn't.
age you're at. You bring to the table what you have, and people will either resonate with it or they won't. But the thing is, within our community, if you bring good information, people are going to resonate with that. It'll get pushed forward and they'll listen more, and you'll be able to engage in more discussions. That's really what it comes down to. I think one of the cool things about our community is that so much information has been processed and been refined down, that stuff that wouldn't ever get understood, like something as complex as the stock market, we're able to break open a window into that. We're able to share more information. Like I have a book on my desk right now. It's Broken Markets. I've talked about it a lot in Spaces. And Broken
Oh,
Markets,
cool.
they talk about high frequency trading. They talk about different things in the stock market that have existed for over a decade. This book came out in 2011, and it's talking about the high frequency trading that a lot of us just became aware about because of this movement.
No, absolutely. It's
It's amazing that a book that was written years and years and years ago, calling for change, is now just coming to a lot of people's consciousness. They're just getting into it. They're just cracking the surface on it, and more people are becoming aware of it. Where before, this probably would have been only read by industry analysts or the odd retail investor. Now, it's spreading like wildfire, this information.
that's I'm just writing down the book so I don't forget because I want to buy that book.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
I'll send you the title and the author and
I
everything, man.
appreciate you. I appreciate you. That's actually it's incredible that this movement has formed that way. And like the reason
Mhm.
I'm writing down the name of the book is, oh, that's a perfect book for what I want to read. I just had a conversation, not a podcast, although I do hope and think Jay Brown will come on one day. He
Yeah,
gave me a phone call. I DM'd. That's how I invite people on. I just so everyone listen. That's how I
yeah,
invite people on. I just DM on Twitter, say, hey, here's who I am. If you have any interest, and no, Jay Brown obviously never got back to me, and then one day just sends me his phone number. Hey, give me a call. Spent 45 minutes just kind of
oh, you
tell me
only
who
had
he
45
is.
minutes. Wow. That's short for him.
Yeah. But he is great. He is great. He loves to go on those spiels, but I did learn a lot. I took a ton of notes and just had to learn a lot from him. And basically, one of the things took a lot of things out of that conversation. One of the things I took out of that conversation, and like this conversation right now is, I want to read
Mhm.
Broken Markets because as hopefully my following grows, I definitely feel a responsibility to spread this message. Like, if dreaming big, but
Yeah.
right now I don't see anybody else, at least, that's doing the podcast thing in this arena. But if we're able to get some podcasters or a podcaster that gets big enough to where they can go get a message, they can go get freaking, I don't know, Joe Rogan, whoever it is, go on that podcast. You get a real platform all of a sudden that's going to reach millions of people outside of our own community. I
Yeah.
do feel responsibility to be as knowledgeable as I can be for that conversation. And in my mind, it's just like, right now you have 200 some followers, you get maybe 1,000 listens a month. I should feel that responsibility now too. And I want to educate myself as much as possible. That whole thing came from the book that you showed during that conversation, but it it is incredible because, like you said, this is back in 2011, and now Dave Lauer has been trying to
Yeah.
get a movement like this going for like over a decade, and
Yeah.
because
And
because
it's
of
finally catching some steam, right? And
yeah,
that the amazing thing is, like, when you have an engaged public, that's when real change can come about. When you have people who are not just knowledgeable but aware of what's going on and willing to work together across party lines, across all the different things that usually divide people, beautiful things happen in the world. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it is I want to see good change. I have 3 kids. I want a world that's better for them. I want to see something better than what I see on CNN or Fox News or any of the major mainstream media sites. I want to see something better. And the way that I feel I can do that is by affecting things within my sphere of influence. My sphere of influence is my home, my neighborhood, and the community that I'm a part of. And I've been a part of the ape community for the last 2 years. They've seen me through tough times. I've got a lot of health problems and other things going on in my life. And every time that there's been a challenge, somebody has been there for me. And by branching out and embracing that level of thinking where you're only focusing on your sphere of influence and not getting overwhelmed by the sheer scope of change, because it can be overwhelming. But when I focus in on what's right in front of me and the things that I can control, that's when good things start to happen and the message starts to spread. And it doesn't belong to me, right? None of it does. The small space doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the community. You know, when I take time off, I have friends who will pick it up and they'll carry the banner, right? Like Rafiki has done
So
that for me.
cool.
He's
Yeah, that's so
amazing.
cool.
And I don't I don't want to get caught up in like thinking that if I went away tomorrow, it would stop, because it won't. Nobody's pushing, nobody alone is pushing this movement forward. It's happening
Exactly.
organically.
Exactly. Yes, it's so much bigger. So this is actually funny. It sparked a story in my mind. When I first got involved in this, and I didn't know a thing about trading. Like I had money in my
Mhm.
401k, and I was in a big accounting firm, so I didn't even get to
Yeah.
choose what the 401k was. So I had no
Yeah.
idea what I was even holding. Anywho, no idea how to trade, no idea how charts really worked, any of that. And I'm learning. I got one of my friends introduces me to the play, and I just start learning a little bit. And I'm learning through. I'd actually love to expand on one of these guys in a second, but I'm learning through Trades and Matt Kors, just like
Yeah.
that. They were fantastic bridges for someone that had no idea what it was to, hey, here's your starter steps.
And
And
it introduces you to something deeper, right? And
exactly.
then you take
But
that
before
and you learn more.
exactly, but before I got there, back when these were just the two guys, and Trey was the guy, and that I knew
Mhm.
of, and that I really thought it was. And I remember like, am I gonna get in this? I'm talking to one of my friends. I'm like, do you think we should get in this? And he's starting stocks exact same time as I am, not a little bit later, as getting in and really getting into the reading and learning. And I was like, here's why I think it's gonna work. And this is back when we were at 12 the first time. And this is why I think it's gonna work. XYZ. And it's like, here's why I think it might not. And one of my thoughts was, well, what if like God forbid Trey dies? Then all of a sudden this movement's gonna stop. But fast forward 3 months, and all of a sudden I'm learning, oh my God, this is everywhere. This is just it just is. It's just a bunch of apes. It's just they're just all there. And this is what they
Yep.
do. Bears short the market, bulls push the market, and apes just buy and hold. And this is what they do, and they're all here, and there's so much education. There's so many pockets you can find your way to be involved and your way to learn. And
Yeah.
once I saw that, it there's so many moments where I said I knew, because there's just so many giveaways in my opinion. Once I
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, dude, they're not gonna shake this. They're not gonna shake them. It's just it's over. I started understanding the memes of I know what I'm holding, and like it would
Yeah.
be four aces and then an ape and all those funny little things. I was like, oh my gosh.
I love that, right?
Yeah, it's like that does it. It's funny because obviously you should never buy something because of a meme. You should never not buy something because of a meme. But it's funny because as you learn, you can look at one of those and it looks completely different to you now. It's like I get what this is saying, and here that sparked thought. Let me tell you why. It's hey, I know I have four aces. The only way we lose is if we fold. You can't control people are gonna
Yep.
fold, but then well they're here. They're here now. It it's it's wild. We broke the algorithms. Like they never expected this. The algorithms were never built for this. This isn't human behavior. It's not human. It's not natural human behavior. It's ape behavior. It's new,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it all
I
happened
think
through connection.
I
Yeah.
think one of the really cool things that has evolved from all this is that it's gone through so many different evolutions. Well, you had the 2021 was full of the big name YouTubers that created their big platforms on the community, and I think some of them had better motives than others, but
Motives. Yeah.
I don't I don't like to get into that. But it at the same time, it gave people an awareness of what was going on, and it did share a lot of information with people. Whether it was good information or bad is yet to be seen. But what it did is it drove people to seek out more. And I think that was the really cool thing, is that when people decided they were going to seek out more information, they turned to Twitter, they turned to Reddit, and they started digging in and then sharing that information that they'd find. And there's tons of discords out there within the community.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
tons
Yeah.
of space calls. There's tons of Facebook groups, all dedicated to what's going on. and people trying to seek out more information, and those communities start sharing with each other. And we've evolved now to the point where you don't need to have a YouTube channel to be able to spread information to a wide group of people. You don't have to hit all those other metrics or have a massive following. There's people that have a very small account and they bring good information. I'll share it.
Fantastic. Honestly,
You
I
know,
feel like the peak,
it,
like the peak of information, sorry to cut you off there, but that I've seen throughout this whole
no,
journey
it's fine.
is it's really when people are like somewhere between, and obviously this isn't 100% true, but it's really somewhere between like 5,000 and 20,000 followers. That seems to be when you're able to find someone kind of in that range that's sharing good information, that seems to be like, this is incredible, just well done
Mhm.
information. Not always, but it appears to be like when people get past that point, they just whatever for whatever reason it is, various different reasons. It seems to be like a moving on point of I think your bigger motives show through. I think other motives start
Yeah.
to come through a bit, but that's not the point. The point is there's so many people out there that have that 5,000 to 20,000 followers, or even less. There are some with just like a couple hundred
Yep.
people, or whatever it is, but so many people out there that just spread such great information. And if you're once you're in Twitter, and another amazing part of this freaking app, it doesn't matter if you're there is an age limit, I'd say, but I've seen 70-year-olds on this app and just
Yeah.
and they find just through following the interest and the people they're interested in, the community finds them. They find their community, and it happens pretty relatively quickly. You're going to be able to find that here. You're going to be able to find this great information. And I keep coming across new people that just know so much and do such great stuff. And whether it's from spaces or retail stock or at stock retail, it's one of the two. I can't remember his
Yeah.
handle, but wow, he's
Yeah.
a guy I
Stock
worked for Dow
retail.
Jones, stock retail. He worked for Dow Jones for a long time, and just he's able to break down information in his videos just so first grade level. It's incredible that what he's able to do with
Yeah.
complex topics, and it's awesome. And he has not that many followers. I just found him like a month ago or 2 months ago, whatever it was, and I know I'm going to continue to find people. I hope people say that about me too. Oh yeah, I found this, came across this
Yeah.
kid is freaking doing a podcast about us, and hopefully, but it's just so incredible. Like I could rave for hours and hours about this community.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you have a large cross section of people who are committed and passionate about what they're doing, that kind of just evolves naturally, right?
Absolutely,
And you end
yeah,
up with people who are kind of in it for themselves. They kind of get identified quickly, and other people cycle in, and you end up with
yeah,
a group of really amazing individuals who are just there to try and help spread awareness, spread education, and bring about change. And to me, that's been the beautiful thing about Twitter Spaces is that the community itself has kind of been self-regulating in a lot of ways.
yes, it
Uh,
has been.
it goes through its ebbs and flows. Like sometimes people are more aggressive, and sometimes friends fight. But at the same time, at the end of the day, people always come back together. People say their apologies, and then you move on and you move forward, and you keep working at it. I think of where we were even 6 months ago, the way that the movement has kind of
Healed.
become closer.
Yeah,
We're now talking. People are meeting in person. They're being like feeling called to like take on other avenues of spreading awareness. And you look at groups like Apes for Change and how they've evolved and matured as a charity and how they've been able to impact people's personal lives as well. You have people like Siggy. Siggy runs a mental health space with Stonk Vision, and both those guys have done tireless amounts of work to build a community that isn't just about what's happening in the market, but it's also about creating well-rounded individuals who can be strong forces in the market, who can withstand the buffeting of the FUD campaigns, that can see through the muck, can read a filing and understand it for themselves and come to a knowledge for themselves. That's personal empowerment. I've often said that a lot of the time, what I've gotten out of being a part of this community is that sense of feeling empowered to bring about change and to connect with people. The last few years, that's been harder and harder for people to do. And yet
Absolutely.
somehow this community has been able to buck that trend. And for me, I love it. Like I'm a pretty simple guy. Like I don't talk a lot of DD. Every now and then I'll drop a little bit of information here and there, but I know that there are people out there who can explain it better than I can. And so I try and focus on the human side of the community, making sure people have a place to vent their fears, to be able to talk about things, to be able to joke around and not have to have people shouting at each other, disagreeing about a little piece of a filing or an interpretation of something. You need to have all sorts of different places for a community to thrive. And I've found my niche. I know where I belong within that, and that's helping people connect and helping people build. That's why Jay and I get along so well.
Yeah.
Jay and I started hosting calls together, and it was just like everything kind of meshed together there because we're both trying to build community, trying to build connection. See, people can see each other for who they are, and it helps. He likes to say galvanize the community, and that's exactly what it does. Because when people can connect, they're less likely to get frustrated and just peace out. They'll stick it
Yes.
out.
Yes.
They'll
Very true.
talk things out.
That's
When there is a
true.
disagreement that comes up, they don't give up and just, okay, block you, see you later. No, they'll talk it through. And to me, that is beautiful because that's the next evolution in our community. That's where we take it to the next level, is winning people over, understanding that you don't have to block out everything. That, of course, protect your peace at all costs, right?
Yes. Yeah. And
But
there's times
there's a
where
time and
I
a place
see
for
it.
it.
Yeah. Like you said,
But
there's
you,
good and bad. There's a balance there. It's the yin yang of life.
yeah,
That's I have
yep.
a
It's like
tattoo of yin yang
anything.
right here, and not it's yin
Yeah,
yang and Hakuna Matata, but yeah, it's everything in life.
yeah.
It's that's
And
been
it,
around for generations after generation for a reason.
yeah, exactly. And when our community, as our community matures, you will see more of that balance come into it. I believe we will. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people who are feeling like they need to call out things or gatekeep or all these things that we've seen in the community in the last couple of years. But if there's enough of us that are willing to talk, willing to see other perspectives, it's going to still thrive. It's not going to go away. I think that is what I try and help foster. And I'm not doing it alone, and I'm not even the best at it. I've just been able to take my whole sum of my life experience and boil it into trying to lead with empathy on the internet. It's
No, it's amazing.
a weird
We
thing,
need
but
we
it's
need a
worthwhile in my
thousand more
opinion.
like you. And the cool part of you is that you can create a thousand more like you. You can go create a few, I'll go create a few, go create a few, and it what you're doing is very important. It really, really is. It's my mind just keeps going back to how special this is. It really does. It's just an incredible thing that so many people like yourself that just have been able to find their voice and be able to share their voice, and you slowly kind of realize how important it is. It's
Yeah.
it's been an incredible thing, and I'm glad that this community of people have found their voice and are continuing to every day to find their voice and finally connect. I mean, this is what when the beginning of a big game. I still think we're early on in the game, maybe the fourth inning at this point. I can't wait to see the final score. But I think it's gonna
Oh, I
be
know. Me
I think
too.
it's gonna be the first time. I think it's gonna be the first time in a long time. I'm sure there are instances in history, but I think the first time in my lifetime, I'm actually gonna be able to say, "Holy shit, the the fucking 99%ers did it. They fucking did it. I never saw this coming." Like that
Uh,
doesn't happen
Well,
a lot.
this is one of the beautiful things about it, right? Is that there is a feeling amongst a lot of us where we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. There's no single person within this community that's more important than the other. Everyone plays a part, everyone plays a role, especially when it comes to things like a space call or a group. Everybody plays a role, even if they're just sitting there listening and absorbing the energy of the room. they're a part of it. They're not passive. They do play a very important role. I think when people realize that just being present and absorbing the information and hearing what's out there, that makes you part of this. That's empowering. It
Yeah.
really is. And people who have felt powerless for years, ah, it's beautiful to watch them wake up and be able to find their voice. I think for me, this has been an incredibly healing part for me to experience because I've spent years kind of being a little bit more of a hermit. And now I engage with people all over the world. I've got serious medical problems, which cause me to not be able to be as active as I want to be,
Mm.
and means I don't get to get out as much. And I'm starting to open up and share a little bit more of that part of my life. But at the same time, the community accepted me no matter what, and they've been there for me. I just think back to earlier in January, my daughter, when my wife was pregnant with her, was having some complications, and there was 50,000 people that viewed a tweet requesting prayer for my daughter.
Yeah.
And that was such a humbling experience for me. A community I poured my heart into and shared so much of myself with was there for me when I needed it. And that transcended anything to do with the stock. I had so many people message me and tell me how much they were thinking of me and my family. And I think that's what sets us apart from previous movements. I watched Occupy Wall Street from Canada, from television. I saw thousands of people camping out on Wall Street and trying to bring about change. But when it fizzled and those people were removed and the protest was over, there wasn't any follow up. We have that now. We don't have a venue that they can push us out of because we're decentralized. Our voice can be raised no matter what happens. If Twitter goes down, we have Discord. If Discord goes down, we have Facebook. If Facebook goes down, we have Reddit. We have multiple avenues of being able to communicate. And that's what sets us apart. We've connected not just on a social media platform with an avatar, but there's so many people out there that have my personal phone number. They're able to text me if something's happening. I have multiple means of being able to figure out why. I can go to Reddit. I can reach out to people through text message or on Twitter or everything else. And I'm not unique in that. Many people have done the same thing, have heard that call and accepted it and said, enough is enough. So no matter what happens, people are going to be able to congregate and talk about it in an unfiltered manner where you're not getting the corporate bias or the established narrative that usually gets pushed out through mainstream media. When you have that, it's like you said earlier, it's the democratization of information, the
Actually,
democratization of the public square.
I think the decentralization almost works better. Those both kind of work in tandem. Those kind of go together actually. Decentralization and democratization, those go together. That is what's happening. And it's just it changed the game. It changed the game of power in the world. And it changed it for the better. It
Yeah,
gave it to the masses. It more in favor to the masses. Like
yeah.
I again, you keep putting things in ways that I've thought about these things. It's not in these ways, and it's so true when you're saying, well, Twitter goes down, we go to Discord. If Discord goes down, we go to Reddit, we go to Facebook, we go to YouTube, we go to what's the YouTube rival?
Hang on a second, man.
Oh, you're good, you're good.
I got the baby here.
Oh, how old's the baby? Oh,
She's 5 weeks and she's hungry, so I just got to pass her off to her mom. Hang on a sec.
no worries.
She's very hungry.
No
Sorry
worries
about
at
that, man.
all. No, you're good. You're good. It's all no worries. We can wrap up here soon anyhow. So, but
Oh, no
yeah,
worries.
I think that's such a great point that it's decentralization. It it did blow my mind. I've never thought about it in that way before. And yeah,
Well,
it's
if
crazy.
you remember back when we were worried about Reddit going down, we had Gangnam Style. People came up with a method of, hey, this is how we're going to communicate. Go to the comments section. If this goes down, this is what we're going to do to communicate. People
Is
thought
that
this thing
why?
through.
Is that why that became the most viewed video ever? I had no idea.
I can't say that for sure. It was a
No,
very popular video before us, but that was one of the reasons was like you take something that was so popular they can't take it down, and we can still communicate through different means, through alternate means.
holy shit.
There's Rumble, there's YouTube, there's all these different avenues
Rumble is
now.
the competitor to YouTube, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I need to start a YouTube channel and a Rumble channel. But I think Rumble was a big deal. I have a buddy who it's actually I'm going to visit down in Texas next week. I'm really excited to see him. But I was saying one day in my group chat of college buddies that I'm giving my hot takes. I don't consider my hot takes actual hot takes. I think they're just well thought through, but that's just me. So I was giving one of my hot takes of YouTube is going to be just the most important thing. Like YouTube is so incredibly important because of the information it's able to get out there, and it's such an incredible social device. And he goes, no, it's gonna be Rumble. And I was like, I meant more so the concept of YouTube, but like, why do you think Rumble? And he says, I just don't, I don't trust anything that's gonna stop freedom of speech. And I know there's ins and outs of that gets complicated, but overall, if you just let things be and let speech find speech, I think in the long run you have a better chance because authority is always going to try and eventually use that avenue to. And I've seen this happen. Like I'm big into my Jewish faith, not faith, but
Mhm.
identity, ethnicity. And
Yep.
I look at all sorts of stuff with Israel and just American politics, and I've seen people on both sides smear someone on the other side as anti-Semitic when it's just not the case. And I've seen both sides defend anti-Semites, but it is something that does get used to try and shut down speech. So it does get dangerous there. And that was his whole argument. And I was like, okay, you convinced me actually. I think Rumble in the very long run, depending on what happens with YouTube and Twitter, I think Twitter kind of got saved by Elon Musk. Truly, like I think it needed something like this to happen, and I'm pulling for this guy 100%. It's just so important to have those spaces. That whole thing
Mhm.
got started by what was the difference between Rumble and YouTube, and yeah, no, I think you
Hey
made a
man,
great point.
the tangents the tangents are what it's all about, man. And
Yeah, no,
I think you touched on a good point there is like when any one singular platform thinks that they can control the narrative or control the messaging, people will find a way to be able to talk. And for better or for worse, I think it doesn't matter what the platform is, we'll be able to connect and
absolutely,
be able to analyze data together and be able to talk together and connect on a human level. And when we do that, it short circuits the propaganda campaigns. It short circuits bigotry, all of those terrible things that have divided people for generations.
absolutely.
When the internet first started, I've been in telecom for years, and before that, I worked in IT. And what I love about what I do now in telecom is that I provide people with access, communities with access to high speed internet, which helps them be able to connect with the world. Everything that we have is connected through the internet.
Yeah,
And that was the vision when it first started.
super
It's
cool.
become something different. There's kind of a monopolization that's happened where you have bigger platforms eating up all the smaller platforms, and then it becomes one group and then they control what you see.
Hmm.
But people will always find a way. They'll find a way to get their message out. And yes, that does leave an opening for other things to happen. on those platforms. But I think when you take the best parts of it and more people are aware and more people are connecting, that will overcome those other negative forces.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
think
I
of,
completely agree.
I think back to how different my life was before I started doing this community, and before I joined the community and started being an active member. And the way that you don't feel nearly as powerful in your own personal life, right? Like you don't feel like you have as much of a voice, so that your voice doesn't matter, because that's kind of how they've wanted everybody to feel. The powers that be have wanted everybody to feel like, guess what? The machine's too big. You can't change it.
Absolutely.
You look now, like I'm just a simple guy from Canada, and I've spoken to Gary Gensler. I'm just a simple guy from Canada, and I talked to a guy in Louisiana, and he's become my best friend.
Super
I've
cool.
talked to
Yeah.
people in Germany, and they've become like family to me. How incredible is that?
Yeah, that's
I'm just one
amazing.
guy, and we're millions strong. We keep building on that. A few years from now, the world's going to be a very different place.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. All right, I'm gonna ask you two more questions and wrap it up here. I love this
Sure,
conversation.
man.
I would love to do it again. Just so you know, I actually one of the reasons I want to get big too is because if I can get big enough where this can just fund itself, and all of a sudden I'm not restricted by, well, I can really only do one a week because I don't really have the time. Okay, I can just
Yeah,
pay somebody to bam, 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 just all this stuff as it's released. I don't have so
yeah.
many more conversations, and I could be like, hey, let's do this a couple nights a week or whatever. But anyway, I'll ask you a couple questions I ask everyone before I let them go. First, if you have any books, lessons, it could be lectures, books, any lesson that you'd want people listening to this or me to go learn, what do you have anything in mind? What would it be?
Broken Markets is a good one. A more digestible one is Flash Boys. I've talked a lot about Flash Boys by Michael Lewis. It's a kind of a layman's introduction to high frequency trading and the flash crash. It's a very easy read for people. And so if you're not a technical kind of person, but you're interested in this stuff, it is a good introduction to that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've read it several times now. There's multiple people that have written amazing amounts of DD out there. I highly recommend people look into the Voltron DD. Voltron is a DD group from the metamaterials community, and they've done a lot of digging into market structure, and I found it incredibly enlightening.
How do you spell that?
Voltron, Voltron.
Okay, I was spelling it right. I just wanted to make
I
sure.
found them through Average Ape, and Average kind of he's got his feelers into all the different communities, and he's brought people together to be able to share like that, right? And it's really been an amazing experience to see that develop. But they're one group that I don't feel get enough views. They've got a subreddit. I'll get you the links for it so you can
Please
post them.
do. Yeah.
But really interesting stuff. They're doing phenomenal work. As always, there's a plethora of people within the community that have just dizzying intellects, and being able to look into that. Also, Jay's been working with We the Investor and Dave Lauer and Alex, great guys. They're going to be launching the terminal, which is like a social media site for retail investors, and providing people like you and I with the same types of tools that the big firms and institutions use. They're a group that some people have misgivings about, but everything that I've seen from them, it's checked out. It's passed the sniff test, and they're
Yeah,
trying to do something good.
that's one thing that I think you touched on earlier, that this community does super well, which is just a really good, great thing to see for the long term of all these communities that are going to happen.
Yeah,
As a whole, the we're really able to figure out the bullshit when we see it. Like,
yeah,
I've never, to this point in time, I've never seen the majority turn on somebody in this community that didn't have it coming, to my opinion, and to
yeah.
to my insights. But I think actually, I think that's one of my better traits in life, to be honest. I'm not great at a lot of things, but I think I'm pretty good at identifying good people and genuine people, decent at it. And I think this community is good at it. I think that's one of the unique skills of hopefully not just this community. I hope that's happening in all the other communities as well, but it is something that's important and special there. So,
Oh, for
and
sure.
then
And
one
I think
last,
overcoming
oh
your
yeah,
own bias too is super important. Like I've had to
incredibly,
do that,
incredibly.
challenge myself with that all the time, right? Is uh trying to everyone's got a bias and trying to be able to learn how to get past it, and not be limited by it, because even people that I don't get along with, I can respect them if I can see past my own bias about them. And that's something that I work my brain on every single day to try and see past my own personal biases that I've developed over the life that I've lived, so that I can see people for who they are and not discount what they're saying just based on something that's a preconceived notion that I may have had at one point in my life. I think that that is something that our community does very well, is being able to transcend that. And it's because there's people like you and I and everybody else who helps kind of filter through that. It's an
Yeah,
incredible thing to watch.
it is. It really, really is. And then on that note, kind of, the last question I ask everybody,
Sure.
in your opinion, in your life, what is the meaning of life?
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, sorry. In your opinion, what is the
Yeah.
meaning of life?
Meaning of life. Wow. That's a very complex question. But
It is.
for me, the meaning of life is to be able to learn as much as possible and help as many people. And at the end of my life, what I hope is that my kids will be proud of me, that they'll think back fondly on some of the things that I've done, and I can leave the world a little bit a better place. And that somebody, when I breathe my last breath, will smile. That's really what it comes down to for me. My family is everything. I love my wife. I love my kids, and I want a better world for them. And I think that's something that resonates with a lot of people in our community. We want a better world, and we don't want to have to sit back passively and wait for somebody else to do it. We want to do it ourselves. And I think when a group like us becomes empowered, when we have the means to be able to do what we see as best in the world will become a better place. And to me, that is ultimately the meaning of life, is being able to leave it a little bit better for the next generation than we had it. And I think that sets us apart from other communities, is that we're not the boomer generation, we're not the millennial generation, we're not Gen X, Gen Z. We are people, all people equal. You can come
Can't
from
think.
any generation or any different group. As long as you treat people as people, we're going to build something beautiful together.
I can't think of a better way to end this episode. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I would love to do this again sometime.
Yeah, we will. I really enjoyed it, man. It's been great
Good.
talking
Glad to
with you.
hear. Glad to hear it. It's been great talking with you too, Joel. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Oh, for sure. Thanks, man.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.